Hi, this is our presentation. We did the reduced social media study, and we are the No Time Zone group. I'm Madison.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Krysta.
And I'm Megan. And now we're going to go to our objectives of the presentation.
Okay, so for the objectives, we have understand and discuss previous studies related to the current research, discuss the purpose of the study, discuss and understand the methods of the study and the procedures for baseline and intervention, discuss how IOA was collected, understand how treatment fidelity was ensured, discuss the results of the data for the study, discuss the conclusion, and discuss limitations and how that relates to future research.
For our supporting literature, the first article we chose to support our study was mobile social media usage and academic performance. One of our goals while completing this study was to improve our time of like academic stuff, so like homework, studying, things like that. So we kind of use this to support that. This study examined the relationships between social media usage and academic performance in students. This studied the correlation between social media usage and academic performance by comparing time spent on social media and participants' GPA. So they found that the more time spent on social media, the lower the GPA would be. So the correlated that social media did have a negative impact on the academic performance. 263 students participated in this study. This study was middle school, high school, and college students. So this does confirm that social media usage has a negative impact on academic performance, and it was just supporting our need to reduce our social media usage so that we could improve our academic performance. The other article that we chose to support our study was Hooked on Virtual Social Life, Problematic Social Media Use and Associations with Mental Distress and Addictive Disorders. This examines social media usage and the impact that it has on mental health. The study used self-reporting surveys for participants to report their level of social media usage. And their mental health. They did like a scale, and they also asked questions like, do you ever feel depressed? Have you ever had suicidal thoughts? Things like that to kind of gauge mental health. The study was done with 2002 participants. These were ages 16 to 80 years old and both male and female. The study did find that young age was associated with problematic social media usage. Young age would be considered like our age range, like in our 20s. So that's another reason why it's relevant to us. The correlation was that social media usage had a negative impact in mental health. And social media usage is related to addictive behavior and supports our need to reduce social media. So with the addictive behavior, they found that social media usage was related to like gambling, online betting, gaming. So that sort of realm of addiction, not necessarily like substance abuse and things like that.
For our third study, it looked at the relationship between social media use, friendships, and mental health. There were 7,617 participants in the study, and they were all first-year college students. 30% were male and 70% were female. The study found that using your phone can impact your ability to maintain close friendships and puts you at risk for anxiety and depression. This is significant to our study as it shows the importance of decreasing our time spent on phones and increasing the time spent engaging in alternative activities like making meals with family or friends. The popularity and convenience of smartphones can lead to psychological problems. Problematic mobile phone use is an addictive behavior that is caused by the constant use of mobile phones, which impairs the psychological and social functions of its users. For our fourth study, it looked at how the internet, online gaming, and phone use interferes with daily living. Questionnaires were given to everyone who used the internet, played online games, or used a cell phone. There were 190,000 participants in the study. Data was collected electronically through a survey and also in-person interviews. The study found that overusing time on electronic devices increased physical and social impairments. Similarly to our study, decreasing time on phones meant engaging in alternative activities like exercising. As the study concluded, the engaging of social events and decreasing social impairments were significant if the user spent more than one time per month engaging in those social activities. This was socially significant to our study as it reinforced the type of alternative activities that we should be engaging in.
Okay, so for our last article, we found this one, in my opinion, is the most similar to our study that we made. So reducing problematic social media use via a package intervention. So this study examined social media usage and levels of internet addiction, which I thought was really interesting. The study also used screen time application system in our iPhones, just like we did, and self-report questionnaire for time spent engaging in alternative activity, which we also had a survey, and internet addiction test scores to measure overall internet addiction level. Overall, the study found the use of the application system helped decrease internet addiction across all participants. However, not all participants reported an increase of time spent engaging in other activities. So they recruited 9 participants using a Facebook group of multiple universities' undergrad Facebook groups and posting, advertising basically their study. The post specified the researchers were seeking participants who wanted to reduce their social media usage. Participants were all undergrad, ages 8 to 25, who owned an internet-enabled iPhone. So we know that the duration of social media use is associated with depression, other mental illnesses, mood, personality disorders, all of that. And problematic social media use, which daily scrolling, constant screen time, gets in the way of essentially everything. So work, relationships, school, sleep. And at this time of their study, there was no empirically supported treatments for reducing problematic social media use. So in this study, similar to ours, they also asked participants to select 3 activities that they wanted to engage in as alternatives to social media use. This idea came from the alternative activity component of the substance-free activity schedule, which was a study done in 2012, used to reduce drinking by college students. So just like binge drinking on college campuses, binging screen time, like those are really similar things that 20 somethings do really frequently at this age. And basically it concluded that reducing internet addiction can lead to more meaningful sleep, relationships, and work school outcomes, which we also found similarly. The purpose of our study is to test if limiting the amount of time spent on our phones on social media will increase the engagement of alternative activities. So we chose our other activities: time spent cooking and eating with family, time spent exercising, and time spent doing homework or school-related activities. The additional potential benefits of the study include overall mental wellness and peer encouragement and interaction, as we, throughout the study, praised each other for doing other things instead of sitting and scrolling on our phones. It overall increases healthier habits and productivity by reducing our screen time. On our 3 apps that we chose, which were Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, which we all collectively agreed that those were our top 3 most used social media websites. And in essence, we found that it just promotes and supports a healthy and balanced lifestyle. So that was the purpose of our study.
Methods in or participants in setting. So the participants in our study included the 4 of us, 4 female students attending Ball State and a graduate program with internet-enabled iPhones. We all had a screen time app on our iPhones as well. We were all using the same software. And our age ranges are 22 to 27 years old. The setting included any environment where social media websites are accessible using Wi-Fi or internet from an iPhone, which is pretty much everywhere all the time. And then materials, iPhone with access to screen time application, iOS 12, social media apps, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and a computer with access to Google Docs, as well as Google Meets and Google Forms.
The first dependent variable that we had is the duration of social media use via smartphone, defined as minutes per day spent on social networking apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. An example of that would be having TikTok open and watching videos, or having the Facebook app open and scrolling through the feed. Non-examples include using your iPhone to check emails or using your iPhone to send messages on Facebook Messenger. The second dependent variable is the duration of time spent engaging in alternative activities. Alternative activities were defined as activities related to schoolwork, exercise, or preparing and eating meals with family or friends. Some examples of the second dependent variable are studying an extra hour for an exam before it begins, or going to the gym an extra day to run. Some non-examples are watching TV with friends or playing video games with friends, going out to eat at restaurants with friends. The participants collectively selected the 3 activities that we were going to engage in, which we thought were socially significant to us, and the duration of time that we spent engaging in the alternative activities were measured with self-report surveys via Google Forms. The design was a multiple baseline design, and the participants were divided into 2 equal groups. The first group was Madysen and Megan, and the second was Amanda and Krysta. For data collection, we used the Screen Time application app on our phones. We used Google Docs for self-reporting of our social media use, and Google Forms for our self-report surveys. The Google Forms had us record the length of time that we spent engaging in the 3 alternative activities. We did that both at the beginning of our baseline and at the end of our intervention. For our IOA, because the screen time durations were tracked on our screen time application, we assumed it to be accurate. The IOA was demonstrated when participants were taking their screenshots of their application and recorded the data in the Google Docs. We had other group members check the accuracy of the data transfer, and a discrepancy was never reported, so our IOA was at 100%. For treatment integrity, we wanted to ensure treatment fidelity, so the group members recorded on our graph, and we recorded yes for 5 of our different procedures.
Okay, so for our baseline procedure, participants recorded daily durations for the selected social media apps. Alternative activity survey was also filled out within the first week and the last week. To move into the intervention, the data could not show a decrease in trend for the last 3 data points. So each of us utilized our iPhone, which automatically shows us our daily screen time report that are automatically recorded in the screen time category under iPhone settings. This feature automatically categorizes your apps and breaks down the percentage of time and minutes the user spends on each app. So we selected to track our collective top 3, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And participants took screenshots and sent them in of their daily screen time on all 3 social apps, recording the collective daily total of minutes using social media. During the first week, we filled out an alternative activity survey, and we defined alternative activities as any activity relating to schoolwork, exercise, or preparing and eating meals with family and friends. A meeting was conducted with all of us to discuss ways to promote engagement in those activities and just generally in our daily lives. And again, to move into our intervention condition, we made sure our baseline data was not showing a decrease in trend for our last 3 data points.
So for our intervention procedures beforehand, we all met up on Google Meets and decided on a duration goal for each social media app. And the goals were not suggested to one another. These were goals that we individually came up with personally. Then within that meeting, we selected 3 alternative activities, which we had discussed earlier was exercise, anything related to schoolwork, and cooking and eating meals with friends and family. These were things that we decided on collectively within that meeting. Once that meeting was conducted, we also discussed how to promote engagement in these alternative activities. So one of the things that we had talked about was in the time that maybe we weren't spending on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, we would either be doing schoolwork. Maybe that meant like getting collectively together on a Zoom call and just doing a study group, or we would be meal prepping with our families throughout the week and have set times within our schedules to do things like that. After the meeting, participants set the application limits on their iPhones, and we had all observed each other set the application limits to ensure treatment fidelity and IOA, which in the last 2 slides, I believe it was, the picture that we had of the screen shows like the little hourglass bar, which shows us which apps we had placed the application limits on. And the application limits were required, but the duration set that was chosen by us. So it had to be under the goal that we had chosen. But other than that, the duration that we set for the applications was not like a hard set one for our group. One thing to mention about the application limits is that when participants receive an application limit alert, they can select either OK, which will close the application, or 3 options: ignore for 1 minute, ignore for 15, or ignore for today, any of which will allow them to continue using the application. Once the participant reached their time limit on the application, they would continue to receive reminders that they have passed their time limit each day. They open the application until the next day. So you were still allowed to use the app even if you pass your duration, which is an important thing to note. As I stated earlier, participants were also observed turning on their application limits within that meeting. And as long as the duration limit was under their goal that they had set within that meeting, then it was approved to be A-OK with us. Each day that the participant met their goals, social praise was given within the participants group chat in the form of kudos and like little gifts and great job text. And then at the end of the intervention period, the participants would also fill out the alternative activities Google form that was filled out during baseline to compare the data between time spent and alternative activities. One thing to note is that the social praise that was given in the form of shout out and kudos was done within the group chat. And then if they did not meet their goal, no praise was given to them in the participant group chat. This differs from the original study because they were given money for reaching their goals and gift cards. So I just wanted to point that out, that that was a little bit different than how we had done it.
Three out of four participants showed a decrease in social media usage when compared to the baseline data. All participants also reported an increase in time engaged in alternate activities, and then you will see how that looks and who had the decrease in our graph slide. While participants did increase time spent engaging in alternate activities, participants also reported an increase of time spent doing activities that were equivalent or similar to social media use, which were like watching TV or web browsing. So it's still not anything productive that would increase like our time spent on like academic things, spending time with family or exercising.
So for the graph, I wanted to speak a little bit about my data. In my baseline, you can see that my numbers for duration spent on social media are a bit higher than my intervention data. So you can see the decrease with my data with that. Personally, I think the application settings really helped for me because then I felt really guilty for continuing to like be on social media. And I've definitely seen the benefits of having that on my phone because I was definitely able to get more work done and contribute to like my schoolwork and like my social life.
Okay, yeah. So for my graph, which is right under Amanda's, I had a similar guilt with, I mean, you can see in my baseline, my numbers were a lot higher, and the intervention did help me. The app limit time did help me decrease my overall frequency every day. But whenever the reminders would come up, I definitely would think about it for a second, and I was like, okay, do this for the study. Like your group members are probably clicking okay, do not click ignore. So I did have that in mind when I was presented with the time limit being up. But yeah, I'd say overall it was definitely successful for me, and my frequency of screen time did decrease.
For mine, it definitely did decrease, and the time limit made me more aware. I don't know if it made me feel guilty, but it more so pointed out like I've been on social media for a while and it doesn't even feel like that. Like I just waste so much time on social media. So that's kind of what I got out of it. That's how the time limits kind of helped me. But some days I would just hit ignore. So there's some days that are a lot higher than others.
For my graph, the intervention wasn't necessarily successful. I did hit ignore. I feel like I didn't put an app limit on there that was reasonable for my regular use of social media apps. I did have stability within my baseline before I went into the intervention, but my data at that point was not stable. And I just did whatever I wanted with my social media apps and didn't use the procedures.
So these bar graphs show the duration spent and for alternative activities, which again were exercise, schoolwork, and preparing and eating a meal with family or friends. On the left side, we have the baseline bar graph for the alternative activities. At the bottom is the hours spent. So it ranges from 1 hour to 5 hours. And so for time spent doing homework, that one's a little bit more varied, which I feel like makes a bit more sense because depending on other people's work or school schedules, will depend on how much time they like have to set aside for doing homework. But for exercise and preparing meals for friends and families, those look a little more stable, ranging from 1 hour to two. Obviously, exercise, everyone hitting that 1 to like no hours mark. Um, So that definitely shows before social media what we were hitting hours wise. On the right side is after intervention, once we have the application limits set on. So all the numbers kind of increase. So you see an increase in time spent doing homework, an increase in exercise, and an increase in eating and preparing meals with friends and families. And again, the hour ranges are the same, ranging from 1 to 5 hours. I think the most shocking increase or drastic would definitely be exercise and preparing meals with friends and families compared to like homework. Because, like I said before, homework is a bit more tricky just depending on people's school schedule and work schedule.
Okay, so for limitations, social praise may not have been equally reinforcing for all the participants. We've said a couple times they use money in the original study. And that's pretty motivating. Social praise, when you keep hearing it all the time, it can lose its value as well. The amount of spare time participants have varies per day depending on work and assignment due date schedules. There might be more free time on some days versus others. Like on the weekends, you may not work, so you have a lot more time to spend on social media. One week you might have 4 assignments due, and one week you might have 1. So it can cause a lot of variety in the results of like how much time we were spending on social media. Work and school schedules may have made engaging in alternative activities more difficult, resulting in a decreased amount of time spent engaging in those activities. The use of self-reporting surveys are limiting because they rely on the individual to report accurate information that cannot be checked by others. So with our alternative activities, we had no way to check how long each other were actually like spending in those activities. Application limits still allow you to use the app even if you have passed the duration you've set. Some of us have already said we just ignored the alert. So there's not much you can do there. The study only took data on 3 phone applications, while there are other applications that may have had an effect on total duration spent on social media. So we chose those 3 because we all use them heavily, but some of us might also use Twitter occasionally, and that would also contribute to social media usage. So it was kind of limiting in that sense.
So for our conclusion, the application limit overall did help decrease the total duration spent on social media for 3 out of the 4 participants. The decrease in social media was observed, but being allowed to continue using the app after the limit has passed, may have had an effect on the total duration observed in some participants, especially with like varied data points. So when you see like that peak, it might have been that type of day where you just click ignore and keep moving about. An increase in time spent in alternative activities was also observed. But just as a reminder, like work and school schedules could have had an effect on the increases or decreases of social media use and time spent in alternative activities. An increase in time spent in alternative activities, as I stated, was also observed, and other studies have shown that social media can negatively impact mental health, and engaging in alternative activities may help improve mental health and well-being, which kind of follows into what future research could focus on. Future research could focus on the amount of time application limit reminders were ignored and how that relates to the engagement in alternative activities or social media. That was one thing that our study didn't take data on. And I feel like it would have definitely had an impact on our data points and the overall gist of our study. And then the future research can also focus on how much of an improvement is seen in participants' mental health when engaging in alternative activities. As we stated, we definitely personally feel a bit better mental health wise and just overall well-being wise when we did spend more time in those alternative activities. But there's no actual data point that's how like shows us like how well we felt or like how we were measuring that. So it'd be really interesting to see future research kind of put value to that and see how much of an effect that actually has on your mental health and also your physical health if you think about just exercise in general, which we had talked about doing. And future studies can also help combat the limitations that our current study has and give us more insight on the effect of social media and social relationships as an overall well-being. We had mentioned, especially for the other studies, a lot of them focused a lot on social relationships. And while that was a portion of our study, it wasn't the overall like arching part. So it'd be really interesting also to kind of see all of those things mixed in together for one study to kind of combat all the things that maybe we didn't have a chance to take data on. And these are our references for our study. All of the journals that we post or talked about are in there.
All right, I think that's it.